Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaprasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhaskyacha Deshatarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Haribo, 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 I go to Haribo. Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Nitai go to Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Go to Haribo, 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 go to Haribo. Kantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gyoda Premanande. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. We have Bhakta Adam and Bhakta Cassidy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Our two primary
Hare
stalwarts
Krishna.
Atmaramas. Haribol. Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to everybody who may watch later. We're diving in here to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, Text 23. 1:12:23. So, if you would like, please repeat. We're going to dive into the invocation here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Shinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana. Hridyantastoya badrani viddunoti suhrit satam. Nashtaprayashva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Whew. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Alright, fellas. Diving in at 1:12:23. Pitamaha samasamye prasade girisopamaha ashraya sarva bhutanam yata devo ramashrayah. This child will be like his grandfather Yudhishthir or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be magnificent like the Lord of the Kailas hill, Shiva. And he will be the resort of everyone, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, who is even the shelter of the Goddess of Fortune. Purport: mental equanimity refers both to Mars Yudhishthir and to Brahma, the grandfather of all living beings. According to Sridhar Swami, the grandfather referred to is Brahma, but according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, the grandfather is Mars Yudhishthir himself. But in both cases, the comparison is equally good, because both of them are recognized representatives of the Supreme Lord. And thus both of them have to maintain mental equanimity and welfare work for the living being. Any responsible executive agent at the top of administration has to tolerate different types of onslaughts from the very persons for whom he works. Brahmaji was criticized even by the gopis, the highest perfectional devotees of the Lord. The gopis were dissatisfied with the work of Brahmaji because Lord Brahma, as creator of this particular universe, created eyelids which obstructed their seeing Lord Krishna. They could not tolerate a moment's blinking of the eyes, for it kept them from seeing their beloved Lord Krishna. So what to speak of others who are naturally very critical of every action of a responsible man? Similarly, Maharaj Yudhisthira had to cross over many difficult situations created by his enemies, and he proved to be the most perfect maintainer of mental equanimity in all critical circumstances. Therefore, the example of both grandfathers for maintaining equanimity of mind is quite fitting. Lord Shiva is a celebrated demigod who awards gifts to beggars. His name is therefore Ashutosh, or one who is pleased very easily. He is also called the Bhutanath, or the Lord of the common folk, who are mainly attached to him because of his magnificent gifts, even without consideration of the after effects. Ravana was very attached to Lord Shiva, and by easily pleasing him, Ravana became so powerful that he wanted to challenge the authority of Lord Rama. Of course, Ravana was never helped by Lord Shiva when he fought with Ram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Lord of Lord Shiva. To Vrikashura, Lord Shiva awarded a benediction which was not only awkward, but also disturbing. Vrikashura became empowered by the grace of Lord Shiva to banish anyone's head simply by touching it. Although this was awarded by Lord Shiva, the cunning fellow wanted to make an experiment of the power by touching the head of Lord Shiva. Thus the Lord had to take shelter of Vishnu to save himself from trouble, and the Lord Vishnu, by his illusory potency, asked Vrikashura to make an experiment with his own head. The fellow did it, and was finished himself, and so the world was saved from all sorts of trouble by such a cunning beggar of the demigods. The excellent point is that Lord Shiva never denies anyone any sort of gift. He is therefore the most generous, although sometimes some kind of a mistake is made. Rama means the goddess of fortune, and her shelter is Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the maintainer of all living beings. Are innumerable living beings, not only on the surface of this planet, but also in all other hundreds of thousands of planets. All of them are provided with all necessities of life for the progressive march towards the end of self-realization, but on the path of sense gratification they are put into difficulty by the agency of Maya, the illusory energy, and so travel the path of a false plan of economic development. Such economic development is never successful because it is illusory. These men are always after the mercy of the illusory goddess of fortune, but they do not know that the goddess of fortune can live only under the protection of Vishnu. Without Vishnu, the goddess of fortune is an illusion. We should therefore seek the protection of Vishnu instead of directly seeking the protection of the goddess of fortune. Only Vishnu and the devotees of Vishnu can give protection to all. And because Maharaj Parikshit was himself protected by Vishnu, it was quite possible for him to give complete protection to all who wanted to live under his rule. Text 24.
Hare Krishna, I have a question.
My bowl.
Who is the child that this is talking about?
Maharaj Parikshit.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Pricket, as some say. Alright, text 24. Sarvasadiguna mahatmye isha krishnam manuvrataha ranti deva ivodaro yayatir eva dharmakaha. This child will be almost as good as Lord Sri Krishna by following in his footsteps. In magnanimity, he will become as great as King Rantidev, and in religion, he will be like Maharaj Yayati. Purport. The last instruction of Lord Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is that one should give up everything and should follow in the footsteps of the Lord alone. Less intelligent persons do not agree to this great Lord, as ill luck would have it, but one who is actually intelligent catches up this sublime instruction and is immensely benefited. Foolish people do not know that association is the cause of acquiring qualities. Association with fire makes an object hot, even in the material sense. Therefore, association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead makes one qualified like the Lord. As we have discussed previously, one can achieve 78% of the godly qualities by the Lord's intimate association. To follow the instructions of the Lord is to associate with the Lord. The Lord is not a material object whose presence one has to feel for such association. The Lord is present everywhere and at all times. It is quite possible to have his association simply by following his instruction. The Lord and his instruction and the Lord and his name, fame, attributes, and paraphernalia are all identical with him, knowledge. Maharaj Parikshit associated with the Lord even from the womb of his mother up to the last day of his valuable life. And thus he acquired all the essential good qualities of the Lord in all perfection. Rantidev, an ancient king prior to the Mahabharata period, referred to by Narada Muni while instructing Sanjay, as mentioned in Mahabharata, Journal Parva 67. He was a great king, liberal for hospitality and distribution of foodstuff. Even Lord Sri Krishna praised his acts of charity and hospitality. He was blessed by the great Vashishta Muni for supplying him cold water, and thus he achieved the heavenly planet. He used to supply fruits, roots, and leaves to the rishis, and thus he was blessed by them with fulfillment of his desires. Although a kshatriya by birth, he never ate flesh in his life. He was especially hospitable to Vashishta Muni, and by his blessings only he attained the higher planetary residence. He is one of those pious kings whose names are remembered in the morning and evening. Yayati, a great emperor of the world and the original forefather of all great nations of the world who belong to the Aryan and Indo-European stock. He is the son of Maharaj Nahusha, and he became the emperor of the world due to his elder brothers becoming a great and liberated saintly mystic. He ruled over the world for several thousands of years and performed many sacrifices and pious activities recorded in history, although his early youth was very lustful and full of romantic stories. He fell in love with Devayani, the most beloved daughter of Shukracharya. Devayani wished to marry him, but at first he refused to accept her because of her being a daughter of a Brahmana. According to Shastras, a Brahmana should marry the daughter of a Brahmana. They were very much cautious of Varna Shankar population in the world. Shukracharya amended this law of forbidden marriage and induced Emperor Yayati to accept Devayani. Devayani had a girlfriend named Sarmishta, who also fell in love with the emperor and thus went with her friend Devayani. Shukracharya forbade Emperor Yayati to call Sarmishta into his bedroom, but Yayati could not strictly follow his instruction. He secretly married Sarmishta also and begot sons by her. When this was known by Devayani, she went to her father and lodged a complaint. Yayati was much attached to Devayani, and when he went to his father-in-law's place to call her, Shukracharya was angry with him and cursed him to become impotent. Yayati begged his father-in-law to withdraw his curse, but the sage asked Yayati to ask youthfulness from his sons and let them become old as the condition of his becoming potent. He had 5 sons, 2 from Devayani and 3 from Sarmishta. From his sons, namely Yadu, Urvashu, Druhu, Anu, and Puru, 5 famous dynasties, namely the Yadu dynasty, the Yavana Turk dynasty, the Bhoja dynasty, the Malecha dynasty, Greek, and the Paurava dynasty, all emanated to spread all over the world. He reached the heavenly planets by dint of his pious acts, but he fell down from there because of his self-advertisement and criticizing other great souls. After his fall, his daughter and grandson bestowed upon him their accumulated virtues, and by the help of his grandson and friend Shibi, he was again promoted to the heavenly kingdom, becoming one of the assembly members of Yamaraj, with whom he is staying as a devotee. He performed more than 1,000 different sacrifices, gave in charity very liberally, and was a very influential king. And agreed to award him his youthfulness when he was troubled with lustful desires, even for 1,000 years. Finally, he became detached from worldly life and returned the youthfulness again to Puru. But his noblemen and the subjects did not agree. But when he explained to his subjects the greatness of Puru, they agreed to accept Puru as the king, and thus Emperor Yayati retired from family life and left home for the forest. What a story. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. Aruna Lochana Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Nice to have you. Welcome back. Hari Bol. We are hearing in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, Text 25. Just starting 25. Hare Krishna. Okay. Ditya Balisama Krishne Prarada Iva Sadgraha Ahartaisha Swamidhanam Vridhanam Paryupasakaha. This child will be like Bali Maharaj in patience, a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna, like Prahlad Maharaj, a performer of many Ashwamedha horse sacrifices, and a follower of the old and experienced men. Purport. Bali Maharaj, one of the 12 authorities in the devotional service of the Lord. Bali Maharaj is a great authority in devotional service because he sacrificed everything to please the Lord and relinquished the connection of his so-called spiritual master, who obstructed him on the path of risking everything for the service of the Lord. The highest perfection of religious life is to attain to the stage of unqualified devotional service of the Lord without any cause or without being obstructed by any kind of worldly obligation. Bali Maharaj was determined to give up everything for the satisfaction of the Lord, and he did not care for any obstruction whatsoever. He is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, another authority in the devotional service of the Lord. When he's saying authority here, he means Mahajans. These are Mahajans. Bali Maharaj and the history of his dealings with Vishnu Vamanadev are described in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 11 to 24. Prahlad Maharaj, a perfect devotee of Lord Krishna, Vishnu. His father, Hiranyakashipu, chastised him severely when he was only 5 years old for his becoming an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. He was the first son of Hiranyakashipu, and his mother's name was Kayadhu. Prahlad Maharaj was an authority in the devotional service of the Lord because he had his father killed by Lord Nrsimhadev, setting the example that even a father should be removed from the path of devotional service if such a father happens to be an obstacle. That's a pretty heavy statement. Haribol, Baba, Sarovaram Prabhu, Hare Krishna. I can't see who else is there. It's all blurry. Is it too late?
Haribol. Sorry, I don't know why that's setting like that. It's the family. Ananya.
Haribol and
And
Anya.
Gaurashri.
Krishna. Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Haribol, nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too. We're eager to listen. You're reading.
Hey Ananya, my favorite baby. Krishna. All right. Thank you guys for coming. We're in the purport of 112.25, and we're hearing about Prahlad Maharaj right now. Well, we're hearing about Maharaj Parikshit, and how he's going to be as good as so many, great devotees. And here in the purport of 25, we're in the middle of it here. Prahlad Maharaj was an authority in the devotional service of the Lord because he had his father killed by Lord Nrsimhadev, setting the example that even a father should be removed from the path of devotional service if such a father happens to be an obstacle. He had 4 sons, and the eldest son, Virochana, is the father of Bali Maharaj, mentioned above. The history of Prahlad Maharaj's activities is described in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 26. Rajarshinam janayita shastachutpatagaminam nigrahita kaleresha bhuvadharmasya karanat. This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome. Purport. The wisest man in the world is a devotee of the Lord. The sages are called wise men, and there are different types of wise men for different branches of knowledge. Unless, therefore, the king or the head of the state is the wisest man, he cannot control all types of wise men in the state. In the line of royal succession in the family of Maharaj Yudhisthira, all the kings, without exception, were the wisest men of their times. And so also it is foretold about Maharaj Parikshit and his son Maharaj Janamejai, who is yet to be born. Such wise kings can become chastisers of upstarts and uprooters of Kali, or quarrelsome elements. As will be clear in the chapters ahead, Maharaj Parikshit wanted to kill the personified Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow, the emblem of peace and religion. These symptoms of Kali are wine, women, gambling, and slaughterhouses. Wise rulers of all states should take lessons from Maharaj Parikshit in how to maintain peace and morality by subduing the upstarts and quarrelsome people who indulge in wine, illicit connection with women, gambling, and meat eating supplied by regularly maintained slaughterhouses. In this age of Kali, regular license is issued for maintaining all of these different departments of quarrel. So how can they expect peace and morality in the state? The state fathers, therefore, must follow the principles of becoming wiser by devotion to the Lord, by chastising the breaker of discipline, and by uprooting the symptoms of quarrel, as mentioned above. If we want blazing fire, we must use dry fuel. Blazing fire and moist fuel go ill together. Peace and morality can prosper only by the principles of Maharaj Parikshit and his followers. Text 27.
Which chapter and text?
Sorry, what?
What was the chapter and text?
We are 1:12:27. Just starting 27. Takshakaratmano mrityum Nijaputra pasararjatat Prapatsyata upashrutya Uttasanga padam hare. Get your certificate, Bava?
No, did you?
No.
I asked Jai Krishna this morning, and he said, "Yeah, they're there," but he didn't tell me where.
Maybe in the meeting room or something.
If I find yours, I'll hold on to it for you until you come back.
Okay, I appreciate it. We kind of earned them.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. All right. Translation, text 27. After hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird sent by a son of a Brahmin, he will get himself freed from all material attachment and surrender unto the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him. Report. Material attachment and taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord go ill together. Material attachment means ignorance of transcendental happiness under the shelter of the Lord. Devotional service to the Lord while existing in the material world is a way to practice one's transcendental relation with the Lord. And when it is matured, one gets completely free from all material attachment and becomes competent to go back home, back to Godhead. Maharaj Parikshit, being especially attached to the Lord from the beginning of his body in the womb of his mother, was continuously under the shelter of the Lord, and the so-called warning of his death within 7 days from the date of the curse by the Brahmana's son was a boon to him to enable him to prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. Since he was always protected by the Lord, he could have avoided the effect of such a curse by the grace of the Lord. But he did not take such undue advantage for nothing. Rather, he made the best use of a bad bargain. For 7 days continuously, he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source, and thus he got shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord by that opportunity. Jaya Sitatma Yatartyo Munervyasa Sutaraso Vedam Nipagangayam Yasyat Kutobhayam. After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. Purport. Material knowledge means ignorance of the knowledge of one's own self. Philosophy means to seek after the right knowledge of one's own self, or the knowledge of self-realization. Without self-realization, philosophy is dry speculation or a waste of time and energy. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the right knowledge of one's own self, and by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can get free from material attachment and enter into the kingdom of fearlessness. This material world is fearfulness. Its prisoners are always fearful as within a prison house. In the prison house, no one can violate the jail rules and regulations, and violating the rules means another term for extension of prison life. Similarly, we, in this material existence, are always fearful. This fearfulness is called anxiety. Everyone in the material life, in all species and varieties of life, is full of anxieties, either by breaking or without breaking the laws of nature. Liberation or mukti means getting relief from these constant anxieties. This is possible only when the anxieties change to the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the chance to change the quality of anxiety from matter to spirit. This is done in the association of a learned philosopher like the self-realized Shukadeva Goswami, the great son of Sri Vyasadeva. Maharaj Parikshit, after receiving warning of his death, took advantage of this opportunity by association with Shukadeva Goswami and achieved the desired result. There is a sort of imitation of this reciting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam by professional men, and their foolish audience thinks that they will get free from the clutches of material attachment and attain the life of fearlessness. Such imitative hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is a caricature only, and one should not be misled by such a performance of Bhagavatam Saptaha undertaken by ridiculous, greedy fellows to maintain an establishment of material enjoyment. Alright, Krishna. Are there any reflections, questions, comments at this point from anybody? Anybody would like to share?
I know Prabhupada was speaking in a derogatory sense, but I want to become one of the ridiculously greedy fellows for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Sounds like a nice standard.
Yeah. Just transfer it and being ridiculously greedy in the right way. That's a nice one. Yeah, actually, I was thinking to point out in the same purport we just heard, Prabhupada says, basically, everyone in the material life, in all species and varieties of life, is full of anxieties, either by breaking or without breaking the laws of nature. Liberation or mukti means getting relief from these constant anxieties. He said this is possible only when the anxiety is changed to the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the chance to change the quality of anxiety from matter to spirit. So, the way that reads, at least to my ears, is that we can expect to be in anxiety either way. But it's just changing the quality of the anxiety. It's just such a nice way to put it. Because at least for myself, and I've heard from other devotees, we might create like a false expectation of some like idealistic idea of what devotional service is going to be like. The experience of living with devotees or living in the temple executing devotional service, and then if something is challenging or anxiety giving or doesn't match up with that expectation, then we can become sometimes discouraged, and that's what happens a lot. I've seen with new people, and sometimes even to the point where they separate themselves and maybe even give up on practicing. So it's an interesting concept to understand that we're still going to experience the full range of emotions, but in a transcendental context as opposed to a material context, and it might take some time before we actually can appreciate the difference, because it's sublime. It's like it's a whole other paradigm. It's a whole other context of experiencing life, and it's very like Prabhupada says, it's so simple you might miss it. So sometimes it might take us some time to get the appreciation to be able to become attuned to it. Even if we're practicing, we may not be there yet, and we may just be like kind of like suffering through our devotional service. but there's there's a huge difference than being in devotional service, being in association with devotees, trying in devotional service, and just putting all of our energy towards accumulating money or whatever it is, working for assets and things just on the material level. So that's nice to appreciate. Any other points before we hear on? Okay, text 29. Iti agya upadisha viprajataka kovida labdha pachitaya sarve pratijagmo svakan grihan. Thus, those who were expert in astrological knowledge and in performance of the birth ceremony instructed King Yudhisthira about the future history of his child. Then, being sumptuously remunerated, they all returned to their respective homes. Sumptuously remunerated. Purport: the Vedas are the storehouse of knowledge, both material and spiritual, but such knowledge aims at perfection of self-realization. In other words, the Vedas are the guides for the civilized man in every respect. Since human life is the opportunity to get free from all material miseries, it is properly guided by the knowledge of the Vedas in the matters of both material needs and spiritual salvation. The specific intelligent class of men who were devoted particularly to the knowledge of the Vedas were called the Vipras, or the graduates of the Vedic knowledge. There are different branches of knowledge in the Vedas, of which astrology and pathology are two important branches necessary for the common man. So, the intelligent men, generally known as the Brahmanas, took up all the different branches of Vedic knowledge to guide society. Even the Department of Military Education, Dhanur Veda, was also taken up by such intelligent men, and the Vipras were also teachers of this section of knowledge, as were Dronacharya, Kripacharya, and so on. The word Vipra mentioned herein is significant. There is a little difference between the Vipras and the Brahmanas. The Vipras are those who are expert in karma kand, or fruitive activities. guiding the society towards fulfilling the material necessities of life, whereas the Brahmanas are expert in spiritual knowledge of transcendence. This department of knowledge is called Jnana Kand, and above this there is the Upasana Kand. The culmination of Upasana Kand is the devotional service of the Lord Vishnu, and when the Brahmanas achieve perfection, they are called Vaishnavas. Vishnu worship is the highest of the modes of worship. Elevated Brahmanas are Vaishnavas engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And thus Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the science of devotional service, is very dear to the Vaishnavas. And as explained in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is the mature fruit of Vedic knowledge and is superior subject matter above the three khandas, namely karma, jnana, and upasana. Amongst the Karmakand experts, the Jataka expert Vipras were good astrologers who could tell all the future history of a born child simply by the astral calculations of the time, Lagna. Such expert Jataka Vipras were present during the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, and his grandfather, Maharaj Yudhisthira, awarded the Vipras sufficiently with gold, land, villages, grains, and other valuable necessaries of life. It actually says necessaries of life. I don't know if that's a typo, but maybe not. Which also include cows. There is a need of such Vipras in the social structure, and it is the duty of the state to maintain them comfortably, as designed in the Vedic procedure. Such expert Vipras, being sufficiently paid by the state, could give free service to the people in general, and thus this department of Vedic knowledge could be available for all. Saishaloke vikyata parikshiriti yat prabhu purvam drashtam anudhyayan parikcheta nireshviha. So his son will become famous in the world as Parikshit, examiner, because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after that personality whom he saw before his death. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate him. Purport. Maharaj Parikshit, fortunate as he was, got the impression of the Lord even in the womb of his mother, and thus his contemplation on the Lord was constantly with him. Once the impression of the transcendental form of the Lord is fixed in one's mind, one can never forget him in any circumstance. Child Parikshit, after coming out of the womb, was in the habit of examining everyone to see whether he was the same personality whom he first saw in the womb. But no one could be equal to or more attractive than the Lord. And therefore he never accepted anyone. But the Lord was constantly with him by such examination. And thus Maharaj Parikshit was always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord by remembrance. Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord like Maharaj Parikshit. One may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Parikshit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother. But even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to be so. There is a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances. Excuse me. I used to imitate the performances of a neighboring temple of Radha Govinda. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again I revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression, which was developed later into regulative devotional service by his divine grace. Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others. Swarajya putra vavridhe harshu shukla evodupaha apuryamana pitribi kastabir ivasonvaham. As the moon in its waxing fortnight develops day after day, so the royal prince Parikshit very soon developed luxuriantly under the care and full facilities of his guardian forefathers. Yakshimano swamedhena jnati droha jahashaya rajalabadhano dadyo nanyatra karadandayoho. Just at this time, King Yudhisthira was considering performing a horse sacrifice to get freed from sins incurred from fighting with kinsmen. But he became anxious to get some wealth, for there were no surplus funds outside of fines and tax collection. Purport. As the Brahmanas and Vipras had a right to be subsidized by the state executive head had the right to collect taxes and fines from the citizens. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the state treasury was exhausted, and therefore there was no surplus fund except the fund from tax collection and fines. Such funds were sufficient only for the state budget, and having no excess fund, the king was anxious to get more wealth in some other way in order to perform the horse sacrifice. Maharaj Yudhisthira wanted to perform this sacrifice under the instruction of Bhishma Dev. Tadabi pretam alakshya pratarochita chodataha dhanam prahinam ajahur aricham dishi bhurashaha. Understanding the hearty wishes of the king, his brothers, as advised by the infallible Lord Krishna, collected sufficient riches from the north left by King Maruta. Purport. Maharaj Maruta, one of the great emperors of the world. He reigned over the world long before the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira. He was the son of Maharaj Avikshit and was a great devotee of the sun god, known as Yamaraj. His brother Samvarta was a rival priest of the great Brihaspati, the learned priest of the demigods. He conducted one sacrifice called Shankar Yagya, by which the Lord was so satisfied that he was pleased to hand over to him the charge of a mountain peak of gold. This peak of gold is somewhere in the Himalaya mountains, and modern adventurers may try to find it there. He was so powerful an emperor that at the day's end of sacrifice, the demigods from other planets like Indra Chaspati used to visit his palace. And because he had the gold peak at his disposal, he had sufficient gold in his possession. The canopy of the sacrificial altar was completely made of gold. In his daily performances of the sacrificial ceremony, some of the inhabitants of the Vayuloka, airy planets, were invited to expedite the cooking work of the ceremony. And the assembly of the demigods in the ceremony was led by Vishva Dev. By his constant pious work, he was able to drive out all kinds of diseases from the jurisdiction of his kingdom. All the inhabitants of higher planets like Devaloka and Pitraloka were pleased with him for his great sacrificial ceremonies. Every day he used to give in charity to the learned brahmanas such things as beddings, seats, conveyances, and sufficient quantities of gold. Because of magnificent charities and performances of innumerable sacrifices, the king of heaven, Indradev, was fully satisfied with him and always wished for his welfare. Due to his pious activities, he remained a young man throughout his life and reigned over the world for 1,000 years. Surrounded by his satisfied subjects, ministers, legitimate wife, sons, and brothers. Even Lord Sri Krishna praised his spirit of pious activities. He handed over his only daughter to Maharshi Angira, and by his good blessings he was elevated to the kingdom of heaven. First of all, he wanted to offer the priesthood of his sacrifices to learned Brihaspati, but the demigod refused to accept the post because of the king's being a human being, a man of this earth. He was very sorry for this, but on the advice of Narada Muni, he appointed Samvarta to the post, and he was successful in his mission. The success of a particular type of sacrifice completely depends on the priest in charge. In this age, all kinds of sacrifice are forbidden because there is no learned priest amongst the so-called Brahmanas, who go by the false notion of becoming sons of Brahmanas without Brahminical qualifications. In this age of Kali, therefore, only one kind of sacrifice is recommended, Sankirtan Yagya, as inaugurated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. Let me check the time here. Oh, well. It's like pretty much time to wrap it up a little bit. Is there any discussion points or realizations even if it's not about what we read? Everyone's invited. Share how Krishna is working his magic in your personal life, or in anything that you'd like to share. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'm with Baba on what he said earlier.
You want to be a ridiculously greedy fellow?
Have you guys
Yes.
met Dr. Adam yet? He's like ridiculously greedy fellow here.
You're already there, Baba Ji.
uh,
Yes, and if we're not there, we can start with prasadam.
right. Okay, I have to go to bed. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Oh, I guess we split. Yeah, I'm just appreciating hearing. Today we're in the purports. We're really hearing about a lot of different personalities. Maharaj Yayati, Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Maharaj Maruta. We heard about Maharaj Shibi day before yesterday, and one thing I'm taking from our purports today, and hearing the different pastimes of different personalities and great devotees, pure devotees, is actually how how variegated the experiences are. Like just in that last purport, we heard about Maharaj Maruta. He wanted to uh, pass the. Let me see. He wanted to offer the priesthood of his sacrifices to learned Brihaspati, but the demigod refused to accept the post. And I was just thinking, that's like kind of like he said he was very sorry about this. It's like kind of a challenge, and just little details like that we're hearing to me is like it's interesting to hear the different intrigues and challenges and dynamics in the lives of great kings and saints and devotees. And it really, as time is passing, my personal realization that is kind of brewing within me right now is, this concept of like, some things may not, it's not so much that something's destined or meant to be, but it boils down to our choices. And it may be this, or it may not be that, or it may be not that, or it may be this, in life in general, in devotional service. It doesn't really have to be one way or the other. There's like room for, um, just variegatedness, room for doing the dance, of life, and even like experimenting with different decision making to some degree, and it's not so black and white so much, in life, in devotional service. And I'm kind of appreciating, hearing about the different ups and downs of these great personalities and understanding it's really like it's a part of our devotional service here, and it kind of comes back to that, becoming more in tuned and sensitive to that subtle qualitative difference of what we're doing, like being in anxiety for material things or being in anxiety, in a devotional service. On the superficial level, it may just really just seem like anxiety, but to become, attuned in a deeper way, we can appreciate, such a wide, unlimited range of things and experiences in devotional service. So that's just something I'm kind of meditating on. I thought to share. Maybe anybody has any. I don't know if you agree or disagree, or can have any realization on it. I'd be grateful to hear it from anybody. Krishna. So yeah, just a thought there. Otherwise, it's pretty much time to wrap up. Um, I'm gonna end the reading portion there. We're gonna pick up tomorrow on text 34. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, last call for any thing anybody wants to share. And, alright, Bo. And, yep. If
Prabhuji,
not, oh,
what
sorry,
was
Bhopalji.
the last point that you wanted like opinions on,
Sorry, I
realizations
couldn't
on?
hear you.
What was the last point that you were saying you wanted some like realization on?
Oh, I was just sharing about, hearing about the different devotees and different personalities, and all the different things they're going through, and this point of devotional service not being so much black and white, that there's really an unlimited number of choices and paths that we may choose to go through on a superficial level, but remain in devotional service. And I was given the example of like what we read earlier about transferring our anxiety from like anxiety for material things to anxiety for devotional service. And on the superficial level, it just kind of looks and feels maybe even like anxiety, but as I think we become more advanced, we become more tuned in a subtle way to being able to appreciate the difference between being in anxiety in devotional service and being in anxiety for material gain or whatever. And so the main point I was making was that it doesn't necessarily have to be this way or that way, and that, um, you know, like hearing about the different personalities going through so many challenges and intrigues and things, but it's all like in devotional service. So to me, it kind of really broadens the perspective of devotional service. Um, Seeing that we're experiencing this whole range of emotions and experiences in devotional service that superficially might be hard to appreciate, you know what I mean? So anyway, I was just sharing something basically like that and seeing if anybody wanted to share any thoughts on it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you're growing your relationship with devotional service. Like it becomes more of like a actual relationship instead of just like mental speculation on like, the anxieties of it all and just like having your own thoughts on like what makes it better or worse. You learn to just like roll with it as you deepen your connection and your relationship with, your highest self, Krishna. And yeah, you just realize that, Krishna is always there and he's always there for you. Um, and we're always there for him. And we can do devotional service through any sort of ups or downs we have in our lives. Um, so yeah, it just becomes like you're saying, it's like almost like a transcendental kind of anxiety because you transfer it to devotional service.
Right, yeah, it takes some maturity to be able to appreciate it. Sometimes In the earlier stage, we might just be kind of looking at the superficial emotion or something, and like, this is Maya. Devotional service is supposed to be blissful. This is not blissful, or something like that.
Right.
It's like devotional service encompasses all the full range of emotion. Sometimes it just takes maturity to appreciate.
Jai. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Krishna. Well, everybody
Yeah.
else left.
Oh, Jai. Hare Krishna. Funny. Yeah, it kind of gets like becomes getting used to the process. It's like the main thing. It's like at first it just seems like everything's so difficult, it's hard to stay like fully surrendered all the time. And you can like get frustrated about it because you like have this like perfect kind of, especially as a new bhakta, you have like this perfect ideal pure devotee that you want to be. um, and like little disturbances in your devotional service can like really throw you off. And then as you grow older and older and have more and more experiences of that, and like just trying your best to stay Krishna conscious, thinking of Krishna, hearing of Krishna, chanting, you realize like as long as you can come back and like realize that and appreciate, like for instance, how much we appreciate the reading every single day, how much we all come on here and just say like thank you, thank you, thank you, because that's something that helps keep us all in our Krishna consciousness. Like, helps us really like thrive in our Krishna consciousness, hearing from Prabhupada and Krishna. Um, and yeah, just having the appreciation that we even have the desire to be here, to do all that. It's like, it really helps keep us like, keep us going.
Yeah. Nicely said, Babaji. Absolutely. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah, and it keeps getting refined as we practice. When we're young, we might have some real lofty ideas of how things are. And then once you become older and more decrepit like us, then you start to see, yeah, I guess you keep trying to make things perfect and everything doesn't really go that way, and then you start kind of saying, okay, well, this is not exactly reality. But not that it's not perfect, but on a material level at least, like yeah, we can see how a situation may be perfectly imperfect in devotional service, and we can feel satisfied. But unless we're tapping into that deeper wavelength, then we'll just be constantly frustrated. So eventually, um, struggling and anxiety and frustration gets old. So we start, okay, like let's see here, maybe here a little bit better, or at least don't give up. And Krishna gives us some realization, at least for just sticking it out.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, the remembering is, what keeps us going. You're like, oh yeah, I am a spirit. Like, oh yeah, my mind isn't the same thing as my spirit soul. Like anything can happen to my mind, can go up and down, but my spirit's like eternal and full of Krishna. Um, so yeah, having that
Right.
distinction too, and being reminded of it through the reading and like through devotee association, it's what like helps us stay on the path.
Yeah. Yeah, and as time passes, the more I appreciate, you know, practice of Krishna consciousness over time is really such a powerful thing.
So,
Hare
what
Krishna.
makes it powerful to you? Why do you say it's such a powerful thing?
Well, because it builds, like within yourself, it builds. It also shows, it's a bigger commitment. It's a lot more effort, a lot more energy to do something regularly for, you know, every day for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you know, and it's just, it's a totally different experience than like, you know, a half-hearted, wishy-washy attempt for a short amount of time, you know. And
Yeah.
just in my own experience of very imperfectly trying to practice, you know, the experience of doing it is like really profound, you know, just the experience of it in itself, the experience of hearing over time how one's um, perception of the holy name and devotional practices and Shastra hearing, you know, the practices of hearing, you know, how over time it changes and it accumulates within oneself. And there's a certain strength, you know, that it takes to do that, but then there's a certain strength of reciprocation that comes with doing that also. And yeah, so I start to appreciate, you know, I think Prabhupada say, you know, don't be surprised at who leaves, but be more surprised who actually stays, something like that. And yeah, it's not easy to do. So
Yeah, I
yes,
really think these readings help a lot. Like honestly, like because they first off it's regulated, and having the regulated like just being in that mindset of like hearing of what we should be doing uh in devotional service, like which is remembering Krishna. And then we're doing that while we're reading. We're constantly hearing about Krishna and remembering him. And then just like the regulation of that makes it so it's a normal thing for us. And that kind of like it keeps us on the path. Like it keeps us when I say on the path, I'm thinking mainly like it just keeps us coming back for more. Like it keeps us wanting to have like a deeper and deeper, stronger, more personal relationship with God. Um, yeah, and try and like grow it like in servitude instead of like trying to receive all the time, and do like, oh, I want to chant so I can feel better or anything. Like trying to have that mentality of I want to do this like as a service instead of trying to like receive something. I want to give um, my chanting, my
absolutely.
mantras. Yeah.
Yeah, keeps our head in the game, you know.
Yep.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, yeah, Prabhuji. Appreciate your realizations. Um, yeah, that's about it for me.
Yeah, me too.
Alright, thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Prabhuji. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow.
Cool. Sounds
Hare
great.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.